for a decade, I looked at the wall and I was like, that's impossible, there's no chance. But then on the day that I did it, it felt totally normal, it felt comfortable, it felt fun. That process to make something go from impossible to joyous is an incredible transformation. I mean, that's kind of the joy of free soloing.
Hi Alex, welcome to the Winning Formula. We're so excited to have you. Obviously, a lot of people know you as a climber who free soloed El Capitan, which just hit its 8-year anniversary a couple of days ago, right?
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it's surprising it's been so long.
Yeah, so since then, what have you been up to? I know you've been climbing all over the world still.
Yeah, basically climbing full time, but yeah, I've gotten married, had kids, living, developing community, like my family's all kind of around where we live. Yeah, it's been great, but basically still just climbing 5 days a week.
So I wanted to, before we dive into specific climbs, I want to go all the way back to see where your passion for climbing came from. What is it about climbing that you're so in love with?
I think I just love climbing. I think as a kid I liked getting on top of things like trees and buildings and play structures and things, and then my parents took me to a climbing gym and I loved that too, and I've basically been doing it ever since.
All of your past climbs, especially free soloing El Capitan, have been in pursuit of something extraordinary and almost humanly impossible. Where did you get that drive to try to achieve something like that?
Actually, I would sort of disagree. It's not as if all of my past climbs have been in pursuit of something incredible like that. I mean, most of my climbing is just going climbing. You know, it's like I spend most of my time training and climbing with friends, and I would actually say that the quote unquote incredible climbs are more of sort of a byproduct of just constantly climbing and constantly pushing myself. I mean, the thing is, I love rock climbing and I do it all the time. And if I'm going to do it, I want to be good at it. Like, if I'm going to do something, I want to do it well or do it the best that I can. And so I think that with, now I've been climbing almost 30 years. With 30 years of constant effort and constantly pushing myself, you're bound to have breakthroughs every once in a while. And I feel like El Cap represents one of those breakthroughs. I've had other climbs like that I'm proud of. But it's not always necessarily the pursuit of those things in particular. It's just those things are the byproduct of pushing nonstop for 30 years.
Yeah, that's interesting. So that kind of came naturally to you as you were doing the craft of climbing.
Well,
that came.
Yeah, I would say that a lot of those big climbs were the natural next step from other climbs that I'd done. It wasn't like, this is some crazy thing I'm going to do. It was more like, oh, I've done these other things, and it makes sense that that's the next step.
So it's not like when you were a kid, 5 years old, you just woke up, be like, I want to conquer the world.
No. When I was a kid, 5 years old, I was like, I want to climb that tree.
Right. So like little by little, that's a kind of like the natural trajectory to achieving something like that.
I mean, naturally, some of the bigger goals have like stayed out in the distance in front of me for many years where, I've thought about it, I've dreamed about it, I've been like, oh, that would be incredible. But they've happened as the result of tons of small steps as I've worked my way towards them.
Of course. So let's unpack El Capitan a little bit. To achieve something like that, all the elements have to come together. Can you talk about emotionally, physically, psychologically, what did it take for you to make something like that happen?
So the physical element is in some ways the simplest, even though it's obviously difficult to train for something like that. But it's kind of like training for a marathon or anything. If you're willing to put the time in and the effort, like you can get physically fit enough. And so I knew how to physically train for free soloing El Cap. If you've seen the film Free Solo, the documentary, the 2 years that they filmed the documentary were the 2 years that I was most specifically training for that climb. So you could say those 2 years I was like specifically working on El Cap. And so that's kind of the physical training. I think the mental side though was there was a lot more uncertainty around it, just because you don't know what you need to do. For something that's never been done before, kind of like, well, I'm not sure what I need, because I'd wanted to free solo El Cap for maybe 6 years before I actually started the process of working on it.
Okay. And
for those 6 years, I'd kept hoping that I would show up in Yosemite and it would look easy and I'd be able to do it. And then every year I'd show up and I'd be like, that's impossible, I can't do that.
Yeah.
And then I sort of realized that it was never going to look easy, and I had to just do the work. And so that's when I started specifically training for the climb. But it's a long process. But on the day that I finally did free solo El Cap, all those elements had come together, and I knew that I was physically prepared. I was confident in the physical and mental preparation that I'd done. I just had done so much work that now it felt almost inevitable. I was like.
So in that day, you said all elements kind of came together. Do you believe in the element of luck? Do you feel like luck played a role, or is it purely all preparation and the correct mindset that make you feel confident?
There is naturally a place for luck, and Though in some ways, like with my free solo of El Cap, so everything came together. I was ready to do the climb. I was all fired up, and then it rained that day. And so, and that's not in the film. But basically, the day I was going to do it, it turned out being a rain day. And so then the next day, I had to go back up to the summit, rappel down the whole cliff to make sure that nothing had gotten too wet and that all my little chalk marks had stayed on the wall, so I knew how to climb things. Anyway, so I double checked the whole route. Then I had to take another rest day because that obviously takes a lot of energy. And so then I repeated the whole process. I was like, okay, now I'm ready. And so to some extent though, and then even the day that I did the climb, when I woke up, it was like more humid than I wanted that day. It wasn't perfect conditions weather-wise, but it was good enough. It was totally within the tolerance of like, this is fine, but it was far from perfect. And I had a brief moment that morning being like, is this, like, do I want to do this now? And I was like, you know what? Like, no day is perfect. You just have the day you have.
Yeah, so you sort of, how did you kind of evaluate that risk?
Well, once I started climbing, it felt fine. And the thing is, like, I know that I've had so many days of climbing when it's too hot or too cold or too humid or it starts to rain, or I've had so many days of climbing that push me in different ways that the day of the free solo was totally within tolerance. Like it was fine.
Right.
It wasn't ideal, but it's good enough.
I do want to talk about fear and your approach to fear, because you talked about it a lot. You talked about managing fear instead of trying to get rid of it. What is kind of your approach to fear on the wall?
Yeah, so when something unexpected happens and I do get very scared on a wall, which definitely happens all the time, things happen, I basically deal with it the same way that anybody deals with it, which is you take some deep breaths, you compose yourself. I go through what are the stages of grief, denial and bargaining, all the things where you're like, why am I up here? I hate this, I'll never do this again. And then eventually you accept the position that you're in and you deal with it. You take a breath and you carry on. And that's kind of what I've learned through years of climbing, is that it's much easier to manage fear ahead of time, by doing all the preparation, doing all the trainings, putting in the time working, so that when you're up on the wall, you don't get scared.
So during your climb of El Cap, do you feel like your preparation was so thorough that you didn't feel fear at all? Or was there a couple moments where it felt like it hit you and then you had to...
Basically my preparation was great and I didn't really feel fear. That said, at the base of the wall, you're still nervous. It's still so intimidating. You're still doing something that you haven't done before, and so that still gives you nerves, butterflies, like sensations, whatever you want to call it, or call it fear. And then I specifically remember one spot on the route where I did get a little scared. It's not in the film, and it was just like it was basically the first part of the wall where the climbing starts to get steeper, so you're more on your arms.
Yeah.
And so my arms started to feel a little fatigued, and I was like,
How many minutes in was that of the climb?
Oh, I don't know, like an hour and a half.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe an hour and a half. So like a good ways up the wall, but the first third of El Cap is relatively low angle, so most of your weight is on your feet.
Okay.
And then as you get into the second 2/3 of the wall, it's much steeper, and so more of your weight's on your arms. And so my arms started to get pumped, which is totally normal, but I was kind of like, are they too pumped? Is this too much? And then I was like, no, this is totally normal. Just take a deep breath, just relax into it, and then it's fine. But you still have moments where you're just like, am I too pumped? Is this like, is it going wrong? And you're like, no, it's fine. Just carry on, relax.
Wow. So your climb, I have the time, 3 hours, 56 minutes was the time it took for you to climb. Was there kind of a transition in different emotions that took place throughout the climb?
I think over the almost 4 hours that I was free soloing El Cap, I got more relaxed as I went, I think.
Okay.
But the thing is, there's a very notable crux, like the most difficult part of the whole climb is about 2/3 of the way up the wall. And I definitely was more nervous before the crux, and then after I did the hardest part, I was noticeably more relaxed for the top part. And the last 600 feet of the route, so kind of the last 20% or so, is still challenging, but it's kind of easier, and it's a more secure style, like you feel locked in. And so that I was able to just enjoy. I'd kind of gotten past all the hard parts, and I felt safe, and I was just like, this is amazing, what an incredible place to be, and that was so fun.
Yeah, when you got on top of that mountain, what were the emotions? Do you feel like, oh my God, I have achieved something that I've dreamed of for so long?
Yeah, no, I was incredibly psyched. I was very happy, and also because the film crew the documentary crew is up there filming. They're all friends of mine who I'd been working with on the project for 2 years, and so we're all celebrating. They were probably even more relieved than I was, because
I'm sure.
In many ways I think it's more stressful to watch free soloing than it is to do it, because you just don't know what's going to happen.
So I'm sure throughout your climbing career and going forward, balancing risk and reward has played a huge part. throughout your journey, how do you kind of approach that balance? What is it about the result that's so rewarding that you're willing to carry that amount of risk?
Well, that's an interesting way to frame the question, because in some ways I think that a lot of the things that I'm doing, I do them because it feels like I've minimized the risk to zero. You know, it's not because, you know, as you were asking the question, I'm like, is there any reward? Like, nobody cares. Like, most of the things that I've pre-sold, like, nobody really cares about. Nobody even knows about how.
But it's something like for you.
Yeah, it's very satisfying internally,
yeah.
for sure, and it feels, you know, it's a nice way for me to feel like a good rock climber, and ultimately, I guess that's what I'm looking for, is to feel like I'm good at the thing that I love to do. But that said, I don't think that I'm taking crazy, you know, it doesn't feel like I'm rolling the dice and like trying to get away with something. It's more like through training, through preparation, it feels like I reduce the risk to almost zero, and therefore it's very satisfying to go and do that thing. I mean, I think that is at the core one of the things that I love about free soloing, is to take something that seems like it should be crazy and to make it feel normal and not crazy. Yeah. Because even for me, I mean, something like free soloing El Cap, for, you know, a decade I looked at the wall and I was like, that's impossible, there's no chance. But then on the day that I did it, it felt totally normal, it felt comfortable, it felt fun. And that process to make something go from impossible to joyous is an incredible transformation. I mean, that's kind of the joy of free soloing.
Yeah, that's a very interesting perspective. Is this how you approach other risks in life as well?
I don't know, actually, because it's like, what are other risks that, I don't know, I'm like, yeah, what are other risks I take in life?
Maybe like invest in a stock.
No, it's like, those are the kinds of things. I mean, also because investing in a stock, you're like, is that even a risk? Because like, if you lose your money, who cares? You just
I guess everyone, the risk tolerance is different in every situation. The amount of risk to you is different, and it varies in different.
Yeah, I think that's actually one of the real values of rock climbing, is that because the consequences of the risk that you take are often lethal, it's like you basically think about risk and reward sort of differently.
Right.
And it makes many of the other things in life that seem challenging seem a lot less challenging, because you're like, you're not going to die, you're not going to get grievously injured. You're kind of like, I think it's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that a lot with business people and entrepreneurs and things, because it's kind of like, I mean, there is risk, and there's obviously managing risk, and, you know, it's stressful, it's difficult. But the reality is that most people, if their business fails, their kids are still going to go to private school, they're still going to be fine, they personally aren't going to experience hunger. You know, it's going to be a big reputational blow, maybe, and maybe they'll be very disappointed. But
it's not life or death.
Yeah, but they're fine. Like, it's fine. They're
they
going to
just watch free solo and they're going to be fine. They're going to be like.
I mean, I just think that it's important to keep those types of risks in perspective. Where, like, you know, if you're not risking your life, you're kind of like, well, you just try again. That's fine. It's like you'll learn things and do it better next time.
Yeah. So you climbed El Capitan 8 years ago, and then you've been climbing all over the world still. You achieved something extraordinary at the age of 31. Looking ahead, you still have a very long life. Are there new milestones you want to hit?
Yeah, I mean, actually, I just failed on my current project yesterday, or the day before yesterday. I tried to do a climb that I mean, I failed for the season. I'll come back to it in the fall and keep trying. But I thought it might be one of the hardest routes that I ever climbed.
Where is it?
It's with a rope. It's safe. It's all fine. Okay. But it's kind of like a training milestone. But so, for me, it's important to just keep goals like that in front of myself all the time. You know, like something to work on, something to be motivated for. Like, actually, when we're done chatting, I'm going to go to the climbing gym and have a session, because I'm kind of like, well, nice. I failed on my project 2 days ago, but hopefully in the fall I'll have better conditions and I'll do it then.
And I know you have 2 daughters. Do you plan on taking them free solo with you at some point?
I definitely don't plan on taking my 2 baby girls free soloing. That said, actually, though, I think this is an important conversation around risk and things like that, is that, you know, my girls will definitely grow up hiking, and we already go scrambling on rocks and things like that. And I'm sure that my daughters will scramble routes in their lives, you know, like, because we spend so much time in the mountains, we spend so much time outside, like, they will scramble on rocks, and they already do.
If they do decide to take that route, go into extreme climbing like what you did, what would your reaction be?
Well, I think if they've devoted themselves to a pursuit and they're good at it and they feel confident with it, you know, who would I be to question their confidence? As long as it's well-founded. I mean, if they're good at what they do and they've spent a lot of time doing it, and I think that when the time comes, they'll sort of know their own answer.
Now I do want to switch gears and talk about your foundation a little bit. Can you give us a little bit of a background of your foundation? What inspired you to start it?
Yeah, so the Honnold Foundation supports community solar projects around the world. And I started it in 2012, I think, quite a while back. largely out of a general desire to do something positive in the world. I wanted to do something that was good for the environment, and then I realized that there's no point in supporting environmental projects that don't also help human communities in those areas. And so over the years, we consistently supported solar projects because they're so often at the confluence of sort of helping the environment, helping people, like basic energy access and energy poverty. And so after many years of consistently supporting solar projects, we just made it the mission of the Honnold Foundation to support community solar around the world.
I do know you spend quite a good amount of time in nature. Has that relationship with nature kind of shaped your values in terms of this foundation?
Yeah, I mean, I think that as a professional rock climber, I spend the bulk of my time outdoors, camping, and certainly in expeditions in the more far-flung parts of the world and like very rural communities, things like that. And so I think that those experiences as a climber informed both my love of nature and my sort of the fact that I care about energy poverty and I mean, there are almost 1 billion people on Earth without access to power, and that's something that's really easy to forget about when you live, I'm from suburban California, kind of like, oh, it's pretty comfortable, it's pretty easy here.
Yeah.
But there are almost 1 billion people on Earth that don't have that kind of lifestyle. And so, the work that we do through the Honnold Foundation was a small effort to try to balance that a little bit.
Do you enjoy that kind of, like you're there by yourself, it's just you and the mountain, and there's not a lot of distractions happening?
Yeah, I mean, I love that. Though that said, when I go to, there are some climbing areas that are more busy where there are other climbers, there are lots of folks, and I typically enjoy that too because it's a little more rare for me to show up at a crag, like at a cliff where there are a lot of other people. You're always like, wow, there are people here. This is so fun. This is neat. It's like nice to see people, enjoying the same thing that I enjoy. But I mean, I think if it was always crowded like that, that would wear you out maybe. But for me, I spend so much of my time. I've just been climbing a long time, and so you're typically trying to do new things and do like bigger challenges and whatever. And so that means I'm typically in more far-flung places trying like bigger or harder routes, so there just aren't that many people around. So when I do see people, I'm always like, what are you doing out here? It's so great to see you. It's like, what a pleasure.
Now, I want to talk a little bit about the parallel of business and sports and the lessons that business leaders can take away from you. If you can turn your climbing philosophy into one lesson for business leaders or entrepreneurs, what would it be?
One lesson?
Yeah.
I don't know, typically I just say just do the thing. If you just like do the thing that you're trying to do and you work at it for a long time and you consistently show up and you consistently try, you're bound to get better at it eventually. It's like you can't fail forever. And so, I think that's true for anything challenging that you're trying to do, whether that's business or sport or any kind of craft or whatever else. As long as you keep practicing with intention, you're bound to do okay eventually.
Mm-hmm. Obviously, we're living in a world that's filled with constant noises and distractions. How do you keep your head clear and maintain that level of focus on and off the wall?
Yeah, I think that's definitely a challenge. Like before I free soloed all cap, I erased all the social media apps off my phone, things like that. I also stopped responding to email for so long that I basically stopped getting email, which is totally amazing. If you just never respond, people stop sending you messages. And so that was nice. It's funny though, because then I did the climb, and then a year later, the film came out, and that opened the most distracted era of my life probably, because for the next 6 months I did nonstop events promoting the film, and like I called it my deployment to Hollywood. I just like basically went full Hollywood for 6 months, which is like the craziest, most frenetic, like frantic period that I've ever had. And so in some ways, just a reminder that there's sort of a season for everything in life. Like in order to get ready for the climb, I cut off all distractions, but then as a result of the climb, I was incredibly distracted for 6 months. You're kind of like, but that's fine.
Right.
It's like, you just have to embrace whatever season you're in.
But even during downtime or like the moments leading up to the climb, there were cameras with you the entire time. Do you find that distracting, or do you find were you okay with it?
Yeah, I definitely found the cameras a little bit distracting, but it's not that they were with me all the time. They were with me a lot, for sure.
Yeah.
But I did have moments of genuine rest and solitary time. But it also helped that all the camera people were among my closest friends, and so it felt less intrusive to have cameras around because it felt like I was just hanging out with my friends. They just happened to be holding a camera kind of discreetly.
Yeah.
And so it was fine. We were all working together on the same project, and I knew that, I trusted their judgment that if they were filming, it was worth filming. And ultimately, I feel like that trust was well-deserved because they won an Academy Award. So you're like, that's pretty good.
It's amazing. So I have one last question that's a little bit more on the serious side. To someone who's standing at the edge of their own free solo moment, what would you say to them?
I mean, in general, I would say they should go for it. Just try the thing, do the thing. I mean, of course, it depends by the situation. Like, are you prepared? Like, do you have the confidence based on years of experience and preparation or training or whatever it takes?
Yeah.
Like, should you do the thing? But if you've checked the boxes, like if you've done your preparation, like if you've put in the effort, then by all means, try the thing.
Yeah.
I mean, the worst that can happen is that you'll fail. And if it's a business, is that even that big of a deal? You just try again.
Yeah, we're gonna balance the risk and reward again.
Yeah.
For the last 5 minutes, I have a really quick rapid fire questions.
Cool.
These are more on the fun side. We'll just quickly go through them. Okay, so what has been your favorite climbing spot in the world?
I think Yosemite is probably my favorite climbing area in the world just because it's so beautiful. It's close to home for me. I'm from Northern California. I love Yosemite, but there are a lot of other beautiful places on Earth for sure.
What's one spot that's on your list?
That I haven't been?
That you haven't been?
I've really, at some point in my life, want to tour Southeast Asia more, like Thailand, Laos, Vietnam, Southern China a little bit. I've been to China a few times though for climbing, but never to Thailand.
Where did you go? I'm originally from China.
Oh yeah. I've been to Yangshuo.
Okay.
You heard of that? It's like kind of popular touristy spot. And then this spot called Getu, which is like this giant natural arch. It's basically a wonder of the world. It's a totally incredible limestone arch. It's like over 1,000 foot high, like giant. It was amazing.
Is there a big climbing community in China?
There's not a big climbing community, but there's I would say a rapidly growing climbing community in China.
Wow. Okay, awesome. What's your favorite thing to do when you're not climbing?
When I'm not climbing, I mostly think about, no, when I'm not climbing now, I spend most of my time with my family.
I thought you were going to say when you're not climbing, you're thinking about climbing.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's like, yeah, when I'm not climbing, I'm mostly thinking about climbing. But no, now most of my time is, if I'm not at the cliff, I'm with my family.
Awesome. If you weren't a climber, what would you be doing?
If I wasn't a climber, I was studying engineering before I dropped out of university, so maybe I'd be some kind of environmental engineer.
Okay.
But honestly, it's hard to know.
Yeah. What is the most daring thing you've done outside of climbing?
The most daring thing outside of climbing, I don't know. I've done a lot of, quote unquote extreme sports. I did the Bear Grylls TV show, and we had to like skydive out of a plane at the beginning of the TV show with them, and I was like, this all felt kind of extreme because I don't really know how to skydive. I was like, really? We're gonna jump out of a plane with
You had no
cameras?
previous experience?
I had a little bit of previous experience, so technically I had a certification from many years before that I could jump out of a plane, but I don't really know how to. It was I found it slightly scary.
Wow. Okay, if you could only eat one meal for the rest of your life, what would it be?
If I could only eat one meal. If I could only do one meal the rest of my life, probably like rice and veggies. Or some kind of
You're vegetarian, right?
Yeah, I'm mostly vegetarian.
Okay. This is an interesting one. What is one thing most people don't know about you?
Most people don't know that I'm good at crossword puzzles. Maybe not good, but I enjoy doing crossword puzzles.
Oh, really? Are you into a lot of like board games and stuff?
No, but I love my crossword puzzles.
Okay. All right. Last one. If you could swap lives with someone for a day, who would it be?
Ooh, if I could swap lives with somebody for a day.
Anybody.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, living or not living.
I don't know. I mean, I personally have always been most interested in sort of other types of elite athletes, just because I'm so curious. I mean, like mainstream sports. Like I would love to be Kobe Bryant for a day.
Yeah.
May he rest in, while he was still alive, or somebody like LeBron James, like somebody.
NBA star.
Well, not so much the star part, but people who are sort of have like a legendary work ethic for whatever sport they're into. Just because climbing is so different than other mainstream sports that it's interesting to me. Like I've met a few professional football players over the years, and I'm always like, oh, the whole team sport and like training and coaching, it's so different than just being a self-coached person wandering out into the woods to go climb by yourself.
Yeah.
And I've always been interested in that, and so I think it'd be fun to live one day of that kind of lifestyle and see what it's all about. To have like coaches and trainers and like body workers and like all the stuff around sport, and see how that changes the experience of doing a sport.
Yeah. Awesome. So I think these are all the questions I have. Thank you, Alex. Thank you so much for joining me, and thank you so much for showing us the power of resilience and reminding us to live boldly.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it.